So, Laura, let me ask you a question. We did 2 different scenarios of you buying a car. Which one felt more empowered?
Oh, definitely the second one.
Why?
Well, I think the thing that felt really different going into the first scenario versus the second one was that going into the second one, my mindset was a little bit more defensive. Like I was seeing the person sitting across the table from me as someone that I could negotiate with, who was presenting me with different offers that I could counter, and I was ready to counter those. And so I felt more empowered to provide my own opinion there because I had an opinion already formed going in, because I'd done my research. Versus going into the first one, I was assuming that the person sitting across from me was going to advise me to do what was best for me. So I didn't feel particularly empowered there. I was just letting them steer the whole conversation.
Now, just out of curiosity, which of those 2 scenarios more fits your own personality as to how you would have approached things without having to be put in these artificial conditions?
Well, I imagine nobody watching this probably knows me very well, but I tend to be a very trusting person. And
thank goodness car salespeople love that.
Yeah. So walking into that kind of situation, I can imagine I would have gotten taken for a ride because I would believe that the other person had my best interest at heart because I like to see the best in people. And I don't know that would have been true in this case. And they made me, you and Kimberly both made me feel like that was the case, but yes. I don't know that was true.
Well, many salespeople out there will tell you that their job is really to help people. And to a certain degree, that's true. But unfortunately, in most cases, their job, in order to maximize their ability to make a living, is to extract as much profit out of each customer as they possibly can, because
of course
they get a percentage of that. So that the way pay plans are set up, it doesn't necessarily foster that situation where each party really wants to help the other. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is an essence of wanting to help, but it's just so that they can extract as much money from you as they possibly can.
Yeah, and I noticed in the first interaction, you and Kimberly both did a great job working together as a team to make sure that I felt like I had a plan in motion and I felt prepared. But again, now kind of seeing the whole story and having talked to you both extensively about what's going on behind the scenes, yeah, I know that it wasn't it wasn't the best deal I could have gotten. I felt, I think in the hypothetical, like I could have walked out of that dealership feeling great, like I got a great deal and that I was, being helped and got my new car, but.
Well, that's the way salespeople and finance managers want you to feel. They want
right.
you to. One of the things that I've always said over the years is a good deal is simply a state of mind.
Yeah.
If you as the customer are happy with the deal and us as the dealership are happy with the deal, then it was a good deal.
Ignorance was bliss for me in the first scenario,
well,
for sure.
Ignorance is bliss for probably 60 to 70% of the people that come into the dealership. Mm-hmm. And obviously what we're trying to do is, I guess to a certain degree, is to make the salesperson's job a little bit harder, because we've helped to better inform the customer before they've walked in there, so that they know what to expect and they know how to change the direction of the conversation so it's to their benefit as opposed to the salesperson's benefit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I did enjoy trying to sell you a car both times. Well, the second time not nearly as much as the first time. Want to know who the good dealer is in your neighborhood? Go to joinyaa.com and check out our crowdsourced dealer reviews. All of our community members coming together to help one another.
Ray, can I turn that question back around at you? What did you feel like was different? What did you feel like was different about how I behaved in the first versus second negotiation?
The first, it was easy for me to steer the conversation and maneuver you where I wanted to maneuver you and keep you focused on the things that would benefit me as opposed to benefit you. Mm-hmm. So I did my best to keep you focused on cash down, focused on payment, never discussed pricing with you, just, banks are looking for 20% down. You plan on putting that or more down. But the second one, where you fought back and you were steadfast in your position, it made me have to work harder. And it was always a challenge, but the challenge I usually met, I hate to say. But, I don't want to say that I went easy on you in the second one. For time purposes,
You probably could have thrown more at me.
There was more ammunition in the barrel, but I chose not to use it for time-sensitive purposes. But yeah, it was, as a sales manager, to go against somebody that is informed, knows the right questions, and refuses to fall into the traps that have been baited for them by the salesperson. Yeah, it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I prefer the first version of you as opposed to the second.
Of course. I know. I wouldn't say I have a sales background, but I've worked in jobs before where I had to cold call people and try to make sales. And part of the battle is being armed with information as the, I guess, customer, or as the role that I played in this scenario, knowing what prices things should be, knowing what I wanted to pay, and being prepared with those numbers. But then the other part of the battle is knowing what objections you're trained to look out for that I'm going to have, and how you're going to respond to them too, because that's part of what you're looking for in the interaction is like, what 5 things am I expecting Laura to say here, and what are the things I'm ready to respond with?
Most salespeople, it's a form of chess, in that their mind is always 2 or 3 moves ahead.
Right.
So they pretty much have a game plan, and they know if they throw out a question, they know what all the answers could be, and they already have a response planned prior to asking. It's like an attorney, a defense attorney. You never ask a question that you don't already have the answer to. So,
yeah.
So you do it as long as I did it. You get to anticipate what the answers are going to be and how to overcome them.
Absolutely.
But you were good. You were a good learner.
Thank you. Thanks. I had 2 really great teachers.
Well, I don't know about that, but you did really well, and I think this type of exercise points out to our viewers out there the importance of being informed. I mean, one of the things that,
Absolutely.
We say a lot, that knowledge is power, but the truth of the matter is it's applied knowledge that's power. To just simply have the knowledge and not know how to utilize it isn't powerful at all. You had the knowledge and you were coached as to how to use it for the second scenario, and it played out much differently than the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So, Laura, I am so interested to find out what your take on all of this was going through the finance office. Have you been through a finance office before when you were buying a car?
I haven't. I was tangentially involved in a car buying negotiation, in 2016. So it was quite a while ago. And market was very different then. But I wasn't the primary negotiator. I was there with my dad. And and it's funny because I know my dad, and he's probably not watching this, but
Hi, Dad, if you are.
He's a very friendly, smiley guy, and it's so funny. I noticed immediately after, especially knowing him my whole life and knowing what his general disposition was. He sat down at the table with the sales manager, and he was all business. And I was just sitting back watching him. It was so interesting. He knew going into that, and it was probably not his first time, but he knew going into it that he had to kind of be all buttoned up and be ready to go and ready to negotiate and not show his cards.
So I'm interested to find out, what did you think about the menu process, going through the menu the first time, whenever you didn't know so much, versus the second time when you definitely knew a lot?
So I think either way, I found the menu to be helpful as somebody sitting at the table looking through the options. Like, I liked that there was a menu in front of me because I'm a very visual person, and it helped me kind of, decide what I was looking for. I think after having a little bit of coaching from you, compared to the first time when I sat down at the table, I looked at the menu and I picked something off the menu. The second time, I said, let me order something not on the menu, which wouldn't have occurred to me because I think that's part of the sales tactic of having the menu in front of you is you say, here are my 4 options. There's no other options.
Right.
And so the second time going through it, I knew that I could ask for things that were not on the menu. And that was empowering to me to know that I could be flexible and get what I want, not just what you were presenting me with.
That's awesome. I love that so much because, yeah, you're right. Whenever people see those different columns and maybe they do see something that would fit for them that they like, then they automatically think, well, if I want that, I'm going to have to take those other products too. And that's not the case. You don't have to do that. Let's talk about what you didn't ask the first time and then the questions that you did come in prepared with your notebook. I love that. I think more people should take their notebook with them. Why not?
Why not? Yeah, absolutely. The notebook was so helpful to me because I was actually mentioning to Ray and Kimberly before we started filming that all this feels like a totally different language to me. And so having the notebook there reminded me of the language that I should be using in that interaction to make sure that I'm communicating not only the exact right thing, but also kind of, I don't want to say subtly communicating because it's not subtle, but also letting people in the finance office know that I know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Even if I don't have the words right at the top ready to go, I could look at my notes and be like, oh, yes, this thing that I did research on and I know exactly what to ask for. And now there's no miscommunication because they know that I know.
Right.
So that was really helpful to me to have that in front of me.
So the first thing that really flips the table, so to speak, is whenever you hit a finance manager with, well, wait a second, where's my base payment? And in that base payment, you'll see your interest rate. And that's where it all takes off from that point. And you were so empowered. Why? Because you already had a pre-approval or even an approval from your known credit union.
Yeah.
You had been a part of this credit union for a while. You knew what interest rates were out there, and you asked for the base payment, which is
that was huge.
where it shows
that was
you.
huge having that. And I mean, just right at the beginning of the conversation, having that in my back pocket made me feel so empowered throughout the whole rest of the conversation because right away I felt like I was able to steer the conversation the way I wanted it to go rather than letting you take me where you wanted it to go.
Which I tried, didn't I? I tried to take you there. Like the first time.
And after a while, you gave up.
Yeah, I did. Because you had the language. You knew the language. It was in your notebook. You knew it. And so that changes everything. It changes everything. But the first time around, you followed my hand as I went right down to that payment with all those protections. Boom. What were you thinking? How did you feel? Were you feeling like, okay, or, what?
It was almost as if, and because you did it so swiftly upon, starting the conversation, it was almost as if I had this menu in front of me. It had a bunch of things on it that, as an uninformed buyer, I didn't know what all those different acronyms meant and what all those different words meant. And so I was kind of looking at the page going, I don't know what any of this is. And you said, here, let me show you what the most important thing you need to focus on is. And so I said, oh, all I have to worry about is this thing that she's pointing out. And so, all of a sudden you just were able to say, here's what you need to know and here's what you're buying. And I didn't even have anything else to say because I didn't even know what questions to ask or how to read any of the other things that were on the menu. And you were like, let's not even worry about that. It's included.
It's included, and you won't have
just
to pay anything.
Sweeping it under the rug.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that leads us to the very next thing that happened, and that was when we started going into a bit more detail of those products that were shown on the page. What did you ask me?
In the first scenario, nothing.
Right.
Nothing. In the second scenario, it was really helpful for me to know going into the conversation what each of those items were. So I had general background information so that I knew what types of questions to ask. I knew what types of elements were important to me. So it wasn't even just that you offered, and again, I don't have my notebook in front of me, so now I can't remember, the maintenance package. It was like, okay, what specifically about this maintenance package am I looking for? Does it cover all the things or does it just cover oil changes? That's something I might not have known to ask beforehand, but it really should be something that you ask. I mean, you're investing a lot of money. You should know exactly what you're paying for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And ideally, when it comes to a maintenance plan, before you come into the finance office, you want to have already added up how much it's going to cost you to maintain your vehicle, and then find out if this makes sense. The one thing that I want to jump back to is that interest rate. And you could have had me match your interest rate with your credit union. But especially because when we got to Gap, you asked me the prices of things. So I could have shown you everything in your payment, and you might have been happy with that. You were certainly happy with it the first time around. But once you found out what those prices were, now you can really leverage this with your credit union. So I knew I had to beat the interest rate at the credit union to make you happy and make you feel warm and fuzzy, so that I can now proceed to try and sell you some additional products, thinking that it's going to be easier.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easier, because you asked me what the price of these products were.
And I think the other thing that was important too is that because we talked about the base rate right away, and you were able to be flexible on that, it right away set the tone for the whole rest of the conversation, because you were able to move the price on pretty much all of those products that you were trying to sell me. And after I saw that you were able to move on the first one, every single time in my head that you wrote a price down on the paper, I was like, that's too much. That's too much. I was watching you. I was like, I feel like she's making up these prices as she's going, because I know I can try to bargain them down. Was kind of how it felt.
That's so
Which was way
awesome.
different than the first time.
Yeah. Because it was all about the payment. That's all you could focus on was the payment. Okay, I'll take it with all that protection. It sounds great.
And you knew I would walk if it wasn't good enough too. And I think that's a big component
You
of
better
that
believe
too.
it.
You knew I had a better rate, and you knew I would walk.
Yes, you came in prepared, and I knew as soon as you started using terms like, well, where's my base payment? What's my interest rate? That immediately, for a finance manager and a sales manager too, it changes everything. And now I know what I'm dealing with. And as we get into our conversation together, I knew that the wall for me was getting stronger and stronger. The wall was coming up, up, up. And I am trying to tear this wall down. So I'm trying to set this up so that I can ease you in to taking some products, because it's part of my pay plan. But in the end, knowing I would be really happy with this deal if she just takes Gap. And you ask all the right questions for Gap coverage as well. So I thought it went really, really well. You did fantastic. Not
you.
the first time around. The second time around, you did fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like coming out of this on the other side, I feel like I learned so much.
Do you? Do you feel like you could empower other people to go
I hope
through
so.
it too?
I really hope so. That would be very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.